When my husband was emotionally distant, I was so lonely and so hurt. I couldn't understand why the man I married didn't want to have anything to do with me and didn't even want to touch me. But now that I know how to magnetize my husband 24/7 without much effort, I just wish somebody would have told me these things back then, you know? So today I'm sharing three powerful ways to draw your husband to you like a magnet so that there's no distance between you and you feel loved just for being yourself. Ready? Let's do this. I'm Laura Doyle, New York Times bestselling author, and I was the perfect wife, but then I got married. This is the Empowered Wife podcast, where real women share exactly what they did and said to make their hopeless marriages playful and passionate. If you're a wife who thinks that knowing how to have a great relationship is important, subscribe now. And before we get started, I want to know a little something about you. Have you ever tried telling your husband that you want him to be more attentive or spend more time with you or to be more loving when he seems emotionally distant? Let me know in the comments below this video. Or if you're listening to the audio right now, come on over to YouTube and search for Laura Doyle channel and subscribe so you can be part of that conversation in the comments. So, the number one thing that I wish I had known about how to do in the bad old days when my husband felt so emotionally disconnected from me was how to restore my magnetism by getting happy. I have to admit that when he was seemed so far away, I became complainy, frowny faced girl because I thought that if I let him know how unhappy I was with the way he was treating me, that he would change. And as you know already, that didn't work at all. He was not magnetized by a frowny faced girl. He was sick of her. And honestly, so was I. He was avoiding her. And I kind of wanted to avoid me too because I didn't enjoy being frowny faced girl. No one liked her. Frowny faced girl is, how should I say this? Resistible. I was completely resistible with my scrunched up, frowny face. So he kept his distance emotionally and physically. And when I gave up wearing a frowny face all the time to let him know that I wasn't happy with him and I got back to being happy like I was when he fell for me to begin with, that distance between us got a lot smaller. My energy changed, and that was obvious to him from like a mile away. I didn't have to tell him I was happier now. Oh, he picked up on that real fast. He wasn't as glued to the TV or having to work so late or just being checked out on his phone. Why? Because I was happy, and that meant I was pleasable, meaning he had a chance to be successful as a husband. Only that one small change that was 100% within my control made him tons less distant and a lot more interested in me. So, step one is to get happy. You can't do anything else without that. And the way I did that was by asking myself, what do I desire? And if you're like me, you want him to give you more attention. I know. That's what I wanted too. But what else do you desire? Because if you're anything like me, you desire a lot of things. I'd love to upgrade my video studio and I would love a few new sweaters. And I want to get a million copies of the book, The Empowered Wife, into the hands and the hearts of the women who want better relationships. And I would love sushi for dinner and to go for a walk with my sister and to listen to a funny podcast and also some hot chocolate. So this is what I did to magnetize my husband to me. I got happy with frivolous fun and I informed my face about it because, and this is key, that's how I was when he first started to pursue me and seek me out. I was happy. So if you think this wouldn't work with your man, well, why not experiment and see? Let's get you ridiculously happy and see what happens. Worst case, you'll be ridiculously happy. All right. Well, what are three things that would make you feel good today? They can be small. If I can't make myself happy, then my husband has no chance of making me happy either. And that can make him want to keep his distance. Now, I had to start there, or I would have never been able to do this next step, which took, honestly, a lot of humility and just generally seemed yucky at first and scary until I saw how powerful it was for creating connection and drawing my husband to me. And also, it felt so much more dignified than the way I'd been doing things. And the second step is to just be honest about how I'm feeling. As Catherine Aird says, if you can't be a good example, you'll just have to be a horrible warning. And that's what I was. Like when John was emotionally distant, checked out watching TV, and I tried saying, hey, let's spend some time together. And then I went, I need more attention from you. And then you never pay attention to me. But that did not make him want to stop whatever he was doing to snuggle with me or tell me I'm beautiful or ask me how every little thing is, like he does now. Then I read some advice to tell him, I'm deeply concerned about your lack of affection. Obviously, that didn't help at all either. And no wonder. The subtext of that is that you're a horrible husband. You're terrible. So critical, right? I thought, well, I have to say something. If I'm just going to be honest about it, I have to tell him what he's doing wrong. But it turns out, no, I wasn't being honest. I was just being a porcupine wife that no one would want to get close to. But if you can't tell him he's being distant, how is it ever going to change, right? That's what I was worried about. And the answer is because you're going to do something much more powerful and effective for drawing your emotionally distant husband close. At least that's what happened around here. Now, being honest is about sharing how I'm feeling, not what he's doing. I was feeling lonely. I missed him. That was honest. But I didn't want to say that. That sounded dumb. And it made me feel all squishy inside. And actually, I just felt too vulnerable to say that. So I didn't even want to entertain it because that would put a spotlight on this whole painful problem that I had where he was distant and I felt unlovable and repulsive and worthless. The last thing I wanted to do was draw attention to any of that, which is why I was so shocked that when I finally did say what I was feeling in a vulnerable way, and when I say vulnerable, I mean there was no giving him side eye or subtly criticizing him for not spending time with me. No, I was just saying how I felt. When there were no hidden daggers in it, as in, I miss you. Why are you never home? Or I miss you. So what do you have to say for yourself? I was just acknowledging my own tender feelings as a human. And do you know what happened? He came so close, so fast. It was like a cruise missile. So that was surprising. And I have been astonished to find that whenever I am truly vulnerable, meaning I'm not secretly trying to control him or criticize him, he 100% of the time is drawn to me. My vulnerability makes me irresistible to him. Even if, and especially if, I'm a complete mess, even if I'm crying the ugly cry, here comes the cruise missile to love me and protect me. Always, always. So much that sometimes I think that I am being vulnerable, and I find that out that actually I was critical. And the way I find that out is that no cruise missile shows up. If I'm crying or sad in some way and that he's not tripping over himself to get to me in a hurry, that means my message is tinged with control or criticism. I better check the video. I better play back the video again because I had something in there that was prickly. I think I'm being vulnerable because I'm crying, but even the smallest bit of control will repel him and he'll go far, far away. That is true in my house, like 100% of the time. His emotional distance is in direct proportion to how critical and controlling I am being. So he's a very reliable mirror to me, to what I'm bringing. If I'm vulnerable, he's close. If I'm critical or controlling, he's distant. And what I didn't realize in the bad old days is that I am 100% in control of how I am showing up. Now that I know there's no way to be critical and vulnerable at the same time, if John is emotionally pulling away, it's very convicting now. If I'm like, hey, why are you retreating into your phone? I know it means there is something about the way I'm showing up that is not my best self. It's not who I really want to be. It's not my real self, who he loves madly. But being vulnerable can be tricky. All right. So the third thing you're going to want to do if your husband is emotionally distant is to look at your spouse fulfilling prophecy. You have a spouse fulfilling prophecy. You may not realize that you have one. I didn't know that I had one either. And if you relate to having suffered because your husband is distant, like mine was, then you're going to want to pay really close attention to this step because it is so life changing. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can experiment with this yourself. This is really the change your husband intimacy skill, the spouse fulfilling prophecy. So if you are experiencing your husband being emotionally distant right now, then guess what? That is your current spouse fulfilling prophecy. All right. I know it doesn't feel like you made that up. It just feels like it's the truth. That's how I felt too. But what was really going on was every time he was watching TV, I'd be like, oh, there he goes again. He's so emotionally distant. Or if he was late at work, oh, he's just being emotionally avoidant. Or if he was just doing anything but talking to me, I made that into evidence that he was emotionally distant. And so the way that I flipped that is I just came up with a new spouse fulfilling prophecy. I have a lot of students that will do this too. I remember I had one student who had this exact unwitting spouse fulfilling prophecy. Hers was, you never want to spend time with me. And she decided to change it to, I know you love spending time with me, which is totally the opposite. Felt like a bold-faced lie. But she just decided that she was going to experiment with it, which I'm going to invite you to do the same thing, right? And so what you can do is, let's say yours is, I know you love being so emotionally connected to me. I know you love it when we feel connected. Something like that, right? You can start looking for evidence of that. Like, so for example, I had one student whose husband was threatening to move out, and that seemed like big evidence that he was emotionally disconnected. But one of the things that she was able to hone in on and focus on was that he actually had not moved out yet. So she was afraid he was going to, and that was certainly tempting to focus on. But until he moves out, the evidence is he wants to live with you because he is. We're all exactly where we want to be, right? So you can do the same kind of thing. You can just be a detective who's gathering evidence. Like you're going to bring it before a judge and jury, and you're going to say to them, look, I can prove that my husband loves to be emotionally connected to me because look at this, this, and this. Like he moved that furniture for me the other day, or he took out the trash because that's his act of service that proves he wants to be emotionally connected, for example. All right. So you can even write down your spouse fulfilling prophecy, and you might even look for opportunities to say it to him. I know you love being emotionally connected to me. Right? It really takes a lot of courage to do this, but it can be really powerful as well. All right. So there's three things that you can do. I want to invite you to experiment with at least one of them. So which one is it going to be? Are you going to experiment with making yourself ridiculously happy today? Maybe you'll make a list of 20 things that make you happy and do at least three of those today. They can be little, but just make yourself smile. Be sure to inform your face that you're happy. Or you could decide to be vulnerable. Maybe you very carefully remove all criticism and control and deliver a vulnerable message like, I miss you. Or maybe you're going to write down your new spouse fulfilling prophecy. Put it in your own words. It's going to feel like a bold-faced lie. It's the opposite of what you're used to thinking. And that's the experience that you want to be having. So you're going to write that down and you're going to gather evidence for it. Just look around and even look for opportunities to say it to your man if that's appropriate for your situation. All right. Which one of those are you going to experiment with? I would love to hear about that down in the comments below this video too. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet and you are enjoying learning about the 6 intimacy skills, then what are you waiting for? Be sure and subscribe. On next week's podcast, my guest is going to reveal what happened when she decided she did not want to be married anymore. She's going to share what she did that changed her mind and made her marriage worth saving. And in the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that I am not saying that I invented cozy couture, but I seem to be the only one confidently showing up to beach volleyball wearing socks and sandals every week. Vogue hasn't called yet, but they will. They will. For more on how to make your marriage playful and passionate without his conscious effort, even if it seems hopeless right now, check this out.